So the things that I think make a good leader are, I think, definitely communication. It's just been my experience that the people who are the best at rallying their team around themselves and the goal are the ones who are able to communicate both good and bad news. Because I think a lot of people are good at telling all the good things, but when it comes to a difficult decision, it becomes more difficult to communicate that. Um, but additionally, I think integrity is a really big deal. If you say you're going to do something, you should do it. And that's what builds the trust within the team. And then for poor leadership, I think people who have big egos make it difficult. It kind of tears a team apart, actually. So those are kind of my thoughts to begin with.
Yes, that's perfect. I agree completely.
Okay.
What were you thinking, Kimberly?
Oh, me next. Alrighty. So when I was looking into what makes a good leader or a great leader and using the text, of course, I thought first that leaders should be able to align people as people and not just resources. So they should be capable of building a team that works together, not just because they all have the same goal, but because they're similar, their work styles are similar, stuff like that. I also thought, and this is similar to Lauren, what she was saying is that a leader can't have a big ego. So in terms of the text, the leader would have to be a good leader follower as well. So they would have to be able to switch between the role of leader and the role of follower without letting their ego get in the way. Because I know, like, during the workday, you've got to switch between being lead on something and being able to listen and understand and learn, basically. So an example of that, I work as a compliance specialist at an insurance and security school. And any day of the week, I might be conducting some sort of training session for our support staff on updated continuing education laws or insurance and securities laws. But on other days, I'm listening to presentations and the content director visits our location. So you have to be able to switch in between that presentation mode versus listening mode. Another thing I noticed from the text would be that a leader needs to know how to share leadership as well. So that does link back to what I was saying. And then the willingness to communicate has to be really important. It was mentioned in the text that a good leader would be able to communicate just as easily with a floor manager or entry-level employee as they would a team or a member of their like upper-level management. That's me to start with.
Okay, so I came up with this list in OGL 321. I don't know if any of you had that, but we had to watch this video on like what makes good leaders and what doesn't. So one of the videos was 10 traits of a great leader. And I really find myself like going back to this list throughout all these classes talking about leadership in our organizational leadership degree here. So the first one was being a grounded and centered person. So they can't be knocked off their feet. They like pause in response of like at work you have a difficult person. Some situation happens, they're not just gonna like freak out and be like, oh well, your employee or my follower just came at me and now I'm like discombobulated. They need to like have their stuff together, keep their ground, and keep moving. They need to be aware and mindful with the team and with the patterns and with whatever projections are going on in the workplace. And then they need to create solutions. So they need to have like a big idea and a big picture. And for me as a leader, as a manager, and I can know that you guys probably at Starbucks can and relate, like you guys have to think ahead in the business. I feel like sometimes as a manager you have to know like, all right, 6 p.m. like this is gonna happen, so maybe I have to run breaks before here, or you can't do that. You really have to be like mindful of the whole idea of and where you're at as a leader. And then you have to analyze facts and patterns. So like I said, like you can't run breaks during busy times, so you can't, I don't know, there's like different things in different work careers, but that's like a big one. You need to be able to evaluate risks and generate urgency. So like a good leader is a person who takes action and gets into action. They use insight, so they use their intuition a lot. Like I'm not one to like read what the district manager says and like go, I don't know. I like you people say like, oh, I have that gut feeling. Like I just know that you have to like get this done or do that. And I feel like good leaders, they just have that intuition and they're just gonna go with it. And if it's wrong, it's wrong sometimes, but sometimes you have to go off like your gut. you need to build cohesion. So you need to get people together. You need to motivate people. You really have to get people to believe in what you're saying or what you're doing or what the goal is. And then you have to achieve the results, and you have to like buy into that. Some keywords for like being a great leader I came up with were curiosity, questions, learning, and passion. Great leaders we talked about have mentors, and then mentors are also always learning and mentoring. And so I don't know, those are just like some key things that I thought for sure about leadership. And then where did it go? Oh, so team building is a huge thing. And then like you said, actually knowing your team and that they're people. Because we talked about the different kind of leadership in the book. So like the laissez-faire, the authoritative, and the democratic. You maybe like, for me, when I did the activity this week, it said that I was a democratic leader. And I tied on the other two, but then I think like, and sometimes you can't be like that. I don't think you can be, I can be a leader all the time in democratic, but I need to know who my followers are, because I can't come at this person and freak out on them or say like, look, I'm giving you the power, make the decision, when they're never going to make a decision. They don't want to make the decision. They don't want to talk to the drive-through lady. Like, what do you do at the drive-through when she got something wrong? Like, just tell her, like, you can say, I'm so sorry, it's wrong. I'll get you any other kind of pop because we're out of this one. Some people like freak out. So you really have to know your audience and your followers and the people that you're working with. And then like you guys said, communication is like a huge thing. And that's, I think, overall the biggest, I don't know, like the communication like starts it all. Like if you don't know how to communicate, then you probably can't be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. Now I have like 2 examples of work people who do that, but I'll move on and let Rachel put her thoughts in first.
That's good. I think all of us kind of said that communication is key, and I really like the text that communication is a process, because I think I think probably most of us have had managers that are really like dictator type or authoritative, and they just kind of like spew what you need to do, and they don't have like that ability to receive and to give feedback. And so I think communication as a process is like really important. And then our text also talked about theory Y, and I didn't even realize that, but I was just writing stuff down before, and then I realized that it fit in, which was theory X was the one that's like, you know, like motivated by like product and getting the result done, and theory Y was focusing on the people. And I've had a lot of leaders that like they don't inspire people and motivate them based on the individual, kind of uniformly act in a way and expect everyone else to follow them. And I think it's really like, it's a really strong leadership quality to be adaptable to the people that you're leading. And you know, like what Megan was just saying, you know, like sometimes people aren't suited for a certain job, or like they don't take correction in the same way. You know, like if you're younger and you're in a leader position and then you're dealing with someone who's a lot older, like you can learn to adapt the way to communicate with them in a way that like they'll respect you for and appreciate. And then, you know, like I was like that's a really cool way of looking at leadership, that like a leader that's adaptable to people that they're leading. And for bad, I just think like rigid was a word that I used, which I've had a lot of like leaders and managers that are so strict and so like inflexible on anything that it kind of just like they're like really blindsided to like just the situation itself. And so I thought that was pretty bad. But yeah, those are the main ones that came to mind.
The word I was looking for, and what I think like you're building on too, is you have to like be a manager and build a good rapport with your people. Like I think that's you're touching on too. I was trying to think of the word. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's
okay. And to go off of like, you know, the bad leader stuff that Rachel was talking about, yeah, rigid was the unwilling to change part. But they also have selfish, narcissistic, incompetent, and corrupt. But whenever I was thinking about good leaders throughout this, it sounds cheesy, but I was thinking about my dad. He runs a company that I was talking about earlier, but he leads by example. So whenever Megan said, you know, good leaders are always learning, he reads constantly, always learning. He's old now, but he still does. But we also have that leaders focus on people. Somebody had mentioned that before, not things. And his business is an employee engagement. So they do employee of the month plaques and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And they do it with their own people too. So they celebrate their own employees.
Oh, nice.
And then you have to be able to understand and interpret emotions of others. So you can't lead people if you don't know how to interact with them and read them and know where to go from there. And another big thing that was mentioned was storytelling. My dad loves to tell stories, and that's how he gets people to, collaborate. He communicates who he is. He communicates where he wants the company to go, all tied back to these stories that he tells. So I thought that was awesome as well. We got the willingness to communicate. That's a big one. And then I liked where it said leadership is about who you are, how you act, what you do, and how you work with others.
Sounds like he's been a great role model to you, and you have like a perfect person for your paper to interview.
And he had
Right?
he wrote his own book. It's actually called Built to Lead.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So I was definitely looking at that while I was reading this part.
That's great.
that's awesome. I'd like to read it.
He sounds like he would most align out of the three major leadership categories. He would most align with Democratic. Because
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Make it seem that he would definitely speak to his employees, make a decision, kind of involving the whole instead of just an authoritarian
Very
stance.
true. Yep.
Okay.
We got Stephanie. I think she's last. So you can unmute now, Stephanie.
Okay, I feel so bad because can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I've been wanting to comment on your guys' stuff, so what you guys are saying, but I don't want to say anything and mess up the recording. Something that one of you mentioned, I don't have the names by you, so I'm not quite sure who said it, but someone was talking about leadership and fellowship. And it sounds weird to say fellowship for me, but I wrote for the discussion board, like I think it was this week. Oh, can you guys still see me? Okay, there. It flashed for a second. What I thought was really interesting because I never really thought of like leaders and followers kind of being like the same in a way that they intermix sort of thing, and how the idea of going back and forth. And then with the leadership versus like a managership, and I always kind of thought they were synonymous in my head. But I was thinking, I've had a lot of jobs. I've worked for a long, like I've been working since I was like 13 basically. And one of my first jobs when I was 16, though, it was actually like a tax legal job, was for Smashburger. And the manager we had, like she was a nice person, but I feel like she was a horrible leader. And she was basically just manager based, where she would get the things from kind of like a district manager, like how Starbucks has. And she would cross them off each week and be like, do this, do this, do this. And that was kind of it. She never talked to us about her life. She never asked if schedules were okay. She never seemed to care if we were sick. Whereas I worked at Starbucks for a while and I love it so much more. So I love when people bring up Starbucks because I feel like it's really relatable for me. And my boss right now, I'm in San Diego, Starbucks, like I'm up in San Diego. And my manager, she really, really cares about us. So I see her more as a leader because I'm looking into going into more of the corporate side of advertising for Starbucks. And she honestly cares. Like she talked to us about our lives. I think it's a lot of like leadership of how she acts. She acts like a leader. And she tells us why we need to do things. Like even just when you like start working there, like why sequencing is important, customer satisfaction, like, and all the kind of acronyms we have that I don't want to really say them because I don't know if people will understand them necessarily unless you work for Starbucks. Yeah, and like she actually cares. Or even if she's saying like a customer's being like really, really rude, which happens like every single day, but she's like, thank them for giving you a job if you can't thank them for anything else. Just stuff like that where it seems like she understands our position, she understands it's frustrating, and she understands it's stressful, whereas I feel like she more so leads and manages as opposed to just managing kind of thing. Like the book was saying, how it's a lot of like how you act, like kind of I feel like not just how you communicate, but where your intentions are, like where you care sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's why I kind of pulled for these. I feel like chapter 1, chapter 2 are kind of just about that. And the part that I was confused with was calling it like what makes a bad, that was in the prompt, right? It was like what makes a good leader, is it bad leader?
Yeah. Poor leader, but yeah.
A poor leader. But I feel like if you're a poor leader, I feel like you're not really a leader. Or that's the gist I got, where I feel like I don't like calling someone who's a bad leader a leader, because I feel like all the components of being a leader, I feel like are making out to be this like good, strong, leading individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sort of thing.
So I think we did a good job, and we all pretty much understand the lesson.
Mm.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm gonna.
Bye.
Okay,